How Your Brain Tricks You Every Day is written and presented by MindForge Audiobooks. Introduction. You believe your thoughts are logical, that your decisions are based on reason, facts, and clear thinking. It feels like you are in control of your mind, analyzing situations, weighing options, and choosing what makes the most sense. But the truth is different. Your thoughts are not always as logical as they seem. They are influenced by hidden patterns, mental shortcuts, and unconscious biases that shape how you see the world, without you even realizing it. Your brain is constantly trying to make life easier. It simplifies information, it fills in gaps, it makes quick judgments. These shortcuts exist for a reason. They save time, they reduce effort, they help you make fast decisions, but they also come with a cost. Because when your brain takes shortcuts, it does not always focus on accuracy, it focuses on efficiency. And that means your thinking can be biased, your decisions can be influenced, and your perception of reality can be distorted. This happens every day, in small choices and big ones. What you believe, what you notice, what you ignore. Much of it is happening without your awareness. Your mind is constantly guiding you, but not always in the direction you expect. This is why even intelligent people make irrational decisions, not because they lack knowledge, but because their brain is working behind the scenes, shaping their thinking in ways they don't see. These are the hidden tricks of your mind, and until you become aware of them, they continue to influence your life. In this audiobook, you will uncover how your brain really works. You will understand the shortcuts it uses, the biases it creates, and the patterns that guide your behavior. More importantly, you will learn how to recognize these mental tricks and how to take back control of your thinking. Because once you see how your brain is shaping your reality, you can begin to think more clearly, decide more wisely, and act more intentionally. Chapter 1. Your brain uses shortcuts, heuristics. Your brain is incredibly powerful. It processes massive amounts of information every second, far more than you are consciously aware of. Every sight, sound, memory, and possibility flows through your mind continuously. If your brain tried to analyze everything in detail, you would be overwhelmed. You wouldn't be able to decide quickly. You wouldn't be able to function efficiently. You would be stuck in constant analysis. So your brain does something smart. It simplifies. It uses shortcuts, called heuristics, to make fast decisions with minimal effort. These shortcuts are not random. They are built from experience, from patterns, from repetition. They allow your brain to quickly answer questions like, is this safe? Is this familiar? Should I act or avoid? And most of the time, they work. They help you move through life without needing to analyze every detail. But here's the problem. Shortcuts are not always accurate. They are efficient, but imperfect. To understand this, you need to see how your brain operates on two levels: fast thinking and slow thinking. Fast thinking is automatic. It is quick, intuitive, and effortless. You don't need to focus. You don't need to analyze. It just happens. For example, you recognize a face instantly. You react to a sudden sound. You form an opinion within seconds. This is fast thinking. It relies heavily on heuristics. It uses patterns from the past to make quick judgments in the present. Then there is slow thinking. Slow thinking is deliberate. It requires effort. It takes time. It involves logic and reasoning. You use it when solving a complex problem, when making an important decision, when analyzing something deeply. Slow thinking is more accurate, but it is also more demanding. It uses more mental energy, and your brain prefers to save energy. So by default, it relies on fast thinking. It uses shortcuts whenever possible. This is why most of your daily decisions are not deeply analyzed. They are automatic. You choose quickly. You react instantly. You move without thinking too much. This is efficient, but it also creates errors. Because heuristics simplify reality, they don't capture the full picture. They focus on what is easiest to process, not what is most accurate. For example, if something feels familiar, your brain may assume it is safe. If something feels difficult, your brain may assume it is risky. If something looks successful, your brain may assume it is valuable. These assumptions save time, but they are not always true. And this is where shortcuts lead to wrong decisions. You may judge a situation too quickly. You may trust information without questioning it. You may avoid opportunities because they feel uncertain, all because your brain used a shortcut. One common example is judging based on first impressions. You meet someone for the first time. Within seconds, you form an opinion, friendly or not, trustworthy or not, competent or not. But this judgment is based on limited information. Your brain is filling in the gaps, using past experiences, using patterns, using assumptions. And while sometimes this works, sometimes it is wrong. Another example is decision-making under pressure. When you are in a hurry, your brain relies even more on shortcuts. You don't analyze deeply. You go with what feels right. But what feels right is not always correct. It is simply familiar. This is why people repeat the same mistakes. Not because they don't know better, but because their brain is following the same shortcuts. It is using the same patterns. And unless those patterns are questioned, they continue. The key is not to eliminate heuristics. You cannot do that. Your brain needs them. They help you function. They help you move quickly. But you need to become aware of when they are helping and when they are misleading. This awareness changes how you think. You begin to notice when a decision feels too quick, when a judgment is formed instantly, when something feels obvious without deeper analysis. These are signs of fast thinking, and in those moments you can pause, you can slow down, you can bring in slow thinking. Ask yourself, do I have enough information? Am I making assumptions? Is this based on fact or just familiarity? These questions interrupt the shortcut. They force your brain to think more carefully, and this improves your decisions. You don't need to do this all the time. For simple choices, shortcuts are fine. But for important decisions, you need awareness. You need to slow down, because the cost of being wrong is higher. Over time, this creates balance. You still use fast thinking for efficiency, but you use slow thinking for accuracy. You don't rely blindly on your first impression. You question it. You don't follow every instinct. You examine it. This makes your thinking more reliable, because you are no longer controlled by automatic shortcuts. You are using them, but not depending on them. And that is the difference. Your brain will always look for the easiest path. It will always try to simplify. But now you understand how it works. And that understanding gives you an advantage. Because once you see the shortcut, you can decide whether to follow it or think beyond it. Chapter 2. You see what you expect. You believe you are observing reality objectively, that you look at facts, analyze information, and form conclusions based on what is true. But in reality, your brain is not just observing, it is filtering. And what you see is heavily influenced by what you already believe. This is called confirmation bias. It is your brain's tendency to search for, notice, and remember information that supports your existing beliefs, while ignoring or minimizing anything that contradicts them. You are not just seeing the world. You are seeing a version of it that matches your expectations. This process happens automatically. You don't decide to ignore opposing information. Your brain does it for you, because it prefers consistency. It prefers certainty. It prefers to confirm what it already knows. For example, if you believe something will fail, you focus on risks and problems. If you believe something will succeed, you focus on opportunities and strengths. In both cases, you are not seeing everything. You are seeing what aligns with your belief. This is how confirmation bias works. It filters information. Your brain receives more data than it can process, so it selects what seems most relevant. And relevant often means what matches what I already believe. This saves effort. It makes thinking easier, but it also distorts reality, because you are not evaluating all the evidence. You are selecting parts of it. Over time, this creates a loop. You believe something. You look for supporting evidence. You find it. Your belief becomes stronger. And the stronger your belief becomes, the more selective your thinking gets. You become less open to new information, more resistant to opposing views, more confident in your perspective, even if that perspective is incomplete. This is why people can hold strong beliefs even when there is evidence against them, because their brain is not focused on accuracy, it is focused on consistency. Another important part of this process is ignoring opposing evidence. When information challenges your belief, it creates discomfort. It feels uncertain. It threatens your sense of being right. So your brain reacts. It may dismiss the information. It may question the source. It may ignore it completely. Not because you are intentionally avoiding truth, but because your brain is trying to reduce discomfort. It wants to maintain a stable view of the world, so it protects your belief. This protection limits your thinking, because you stop considering alternatives. You stop questioning your assumptions. You stay within the boundaries of what you already believe, and that can affect your decisions. You may miss opportunities because they don't match your expectations. You may avoid ideas that could help you grow. You may repeat mistakes because you don't see the full picture. All because your perception is filtered. Your expectations shape what you notice. They influence how you interpret situations. They guide your attention. If you expect something negative, you look for problems. If you expect something positive, you look for possibilities. This is why two people can experience the same situation and see it differently. Their expectations are different, and those expectations shape their reality. This does not mean reality changes. It means perception changes, and perception influences action. If you believe something will not work, you may not try fully. If you believe you are not capable, you may not take action. If you expect failure, you may create it. Not intentionally, but through your behavior. This is the power of expectation. It does not just influence what you see, it influences what you do. Breaking free from confirmation bias begins with awareness. You need to recognize that your thinking is not neutral. It is influenced. The next time you form a strong opinion, pause. Ask yourself, what evidence supports this? And what evidence might challenge it? This second question is important because your brain does not naturally ask it. You have to choose to ask it. This opens your thinking. It allows you to see beyond your current belief. You also need to become comfortable with uncertainty. Not every situation has a clear answer. Not every belief is fully correct. Being open to this does not weaken you. It makes you more accurate. Because now, you are not just defending your beliefs. You are exploring them. Over time, this changes your mindset. You become more curious, more flexible, more aware. You don't assume you are always right. You remain open to learning. And this improves your decisions, because you are not limited by a single perspective. You are considering multiple possibilities. Your brain will always try to confirm what you believe. That is its nature. But now you can question it. You can challenge it. You can choose to see more, because once you understand that you see what you expect, you can start looking beyond it. And that is where clearer thinking begins. Chapter 3. Fear controls your decisions. You believe your decisions are based on logic, that you think carefully, weigh options, and choose what makes the most sense. But in many situations, something else is leading your choices. Fear. Not always obvious fear, not panic or extreme anxiety, but subtle fear, the kind that shows up as hesitation, as doubt, as overthinking, and most of the time you don't recognize it because it feels logical. It feels like you are being careful, but underneath that logic is your survival system. Your brain is designed to protect you. Its main goal is not success, it is safety. And when it detects uncertainty, it reacts. It does not wait for full analysis. It responds quickly. This is the survival instinct. It is fast, automatic, and emotional. It helped humans survive in dangerous environments. But today, most of your challenges are not life-threatening. They are social, emotional, psychological, speaking in front of people, starting something new, taking a risk. But your brain reacts the same way. It treats uncertainty as danger, and that creates fear. This is where survival instinct conflicts with rational thinking. Rational thinking is slow. It evaluates, it analyzes, it considers long-term outcomes. But fear is fast. It reacts before logic has time to process. So even if something is safe, if it feels uncertain, your brain may label it as risky, and you respond accordingly. This is why your brain exaggerates risk. It does not measure danger accurately. It amplifies it. Because from a survival perspective, it is better to overestimate risk than underestimate it. If your brain assumes something is dangerous, even if it's not, you stay safe. But if it assumes something is safe when it's actually dangerous, the consequences could be serious. So your brain chooses caution. It highlights what could go wrong. It focuses on negative outcomes. It makes risks feel bigger than they are. For example, you think about starting a new project. Your brain immediately shows you possible failures. What if it doesn't work? What if people judge you? What if you fail publicly? These thoughts feel real. They feel important. And they influence your decision. Not because they are certain, but because they are emotionally strong. This leads to avoidance behavior. When something feels risky, your brain tries to avoid it. Not directly. It doesn't say, "Don't do this." It creates subtle resistance. You delay. You hesitate. You tell yourself you need more time. You might say, "I'm not ready yet. I need to prepare more. I'll start later." These statements feel reasonable, but often they are driven by fear. Avoidance gives you immediate relief. You don't face the discomfort. You don't take the risk. You stay in a safe space. And that feels good for a moment. But there is a cost. You lose opportunities. You delay progress. You stay in the same place. And the more you avoid, the stronger the pattern becomes. Your brain learns avoiding works. So next time, it pushes you to avoid even faster. This is how fear shapes behavior. Not through obvious control, but through repeated small choices. You begin to make fear-based decisions. Decisions that prioritize safety over growth. You choose what feels comfortable, not what is beneficial. You stay in familiar situations. You avoid challenges. You limit your actions. And over time, this defines your life, not because you lack ability, but because fear influenced your direction. The key to changing this is awareness. You need to recognize when fear is present, not when it is extreme, but when it is subtle. When you hesitate, ask yourself, is this logic or is this fear? This question helps you see clearly, because fear often hides behind logic. It gives you reasons that sound reasonable, but are based on avoidance. You also need to understand that fear is not always a signal to stop. Sometimes it is a signal to move. It shows you where growth is possible, where you are stepping outside your comfort zone, where something new is happening. If you avoid everything that feels uncomfortable, you avoid growth. But if you learn to act despite fear, you expand your ability. This does not mean ignoring fear completely. It means not letting it control your decisions. You acknowledge it. You understand it. But you don't follow it automatically. Instead of asking, "How do I avoid this feeling?" you ask, "What action matters here?" This shifts your focus from emotion to intention. Over time, this changes your relationship with fear. It becomes less powerful, not because it disappears, but because you stop obeying it. You prove to yourself that you can act even when you feel uncertain, and that builds confidence, not from comfort, but from action, because confidence is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to move despite it. Your brain will always try to protect you. It will always highlight risks. That will not change. But now you understand how it works, and that gives you a choice. You can follow fear, or you can move forward with awareness, and that choice determines your growth. Because fear will always be there, but it does not have to decide your future. Chapter 4. Your memory is not accurate. You trust your memory. You believe that what you remember is what actually happened, that your past experiences are stored clearly, like recordings you can replay whenever you need them. But your memory does not work like a recording. It works like a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, your brain does not simply play it back. It rebuilds the memory using pieces of information, details, emotions, beliefs, and interpretations. And during this process, things can change. Small details may be added. Some parts may be forgotten. Other parts may be reshaped. This is memory reconstruction, not replay. It means your memory is flexible, and that flexibility can lead to distortion. You may remember events differently than they actually happened, not because you are lying, but because your brain is trying to make sense of the past in a way that fits your current understanding. This is how false memories form. A false memory is not a completely invented story. It is a distorted version of a real experience. Your brain fills in gaps. It adjusts details. It connects emotions with events. And over time, the memory feels real, even if it is not fully accurate. For example, you may remember a conversation more negatively than it actually was. You may believe someone said something they didn't. You may exaggerate how bad or how good a situation felt, and the more you recall that memory, the stronger it becomes. Not because it is more accurate, but because it is repeated. Each time you remember it, you slightly reshape it, and eventually, the new version becomes your truth. This happens because your brain is not focused on accuracy. It is focused on meaning. It wants your memories to make sense, to fit your beliefs, to support your identity, so it adjusts them. This is why two people can remember the same event differently. They experience the same situation, but they interpret it in different ways. Their emotions were different. Their perspectives were different. Their memories are different, and both may feel certain they are right. But memory is not objective. It is influenced. This leads to another important question. Why do you remember things incorrectly? There are several reasons. First, your brain simplifies information. It cannot store every detail, so it keeps what seems most important and ignores the rest. Over time, missing details are filled in. Second, your emotions affect your memory. Strong emotions, like fear, embarrassment, or excitement, make memories more vivid, but not necessarily more accurate. They highlight certain parts and reduce others. You remember how you felt more than what actually happened. Third, your current beliefs reshape your past. If your perspective changes, your memory may change with it. You may reinterpret past events to match your current mindset. For example, if you now see yourself as capable, you may remember past struggles differently. If you feel insecure, you may focus more on past failures. Your present influences your past, and that shapes how you think today. This is where memory begins to affect your decisions. You don't just remember the past, you use it. Your brain relies on memory to guide your behavior. It asks, what happened before? What did I learn? What should I do now? If your memory suggests something was negative, you may avoid it. If your memory suggests something was positive, you may move toward it. But if your memory is distorted, your decisions may be based on incomplete or inaccurate information. For example, if you remember a failure as worse than it was, you may hesitate to try again. If you believe a situation went badly, you may avoid similar opportunities. If you recall criticism strongly, you may fear judgment more than necessary. Your past shapes your present. Even if your version of the past is not fully accurate, this can limit your growth because you are reacting to what you remember, not what actually happened. Breaking free from this requires awareness. You need to question your memory, not in a way that creates doubt, but in a way that creates clarity. The next time you recall something, ask, is this exactly what happened or how I remember it? This simple question creates distance. It reminds you that memory is not perfect. You can also separate facts from interpretation. Fact, what actually happened. Interpretation, what it meant to you. For example, fact, you made a mistake. Interpretation, I'm not good enough. These are not the same, but your brain often blends them together. When you separate them, you see more clearly. You reduce emotional distortion. You make better decisions. Another important step is updating your memory through new experiences. If your brain learned something from the past, you can teach it something new. Take action again. Try again. Experience a different outcome. Each new experience reshapes your pattern. It updates your memory. And over time, your thinking changes. Because now, your decisions are based on current reality, not just past interpretation. Your memory will never be perfect. It will always be influenced by emotion, belief, and perspective. But understanding this gives you an advantage. You stop blindly trusting every memory. You start questioning it. You become more flexible. And that flexibility improves your thinking, because your past is not fixed, and neither is your future. The way you remember your life shapes the way you live it. And when you begin to see memory for what it is, not a recording, but a reconstruction, you gain the ability to think more clearly, decide more wisely, and move forward without being limited by what you think happened. Because sometimes, the biggest illusion is not your thoughts, it is your memory. Chapter 5. Emotions. Hijack your thinking. You believe you think before you act, that you analyze situations, consider options, and then make a decision. But in many cases, your mind works differently. You feel first, and then you think. Your emotions move faster than your logic. Before your conscious mind has time to analyze, your brain has already created a feeling: fear, excitement, anger, anxiety, and that feeling shapes what happens next. This is not a flaw. It is how your brain is designed. Emotions are quick. They prepare you to respond immediately. In the past, this speed was necessary. You didn't have time to analyze danger. You had to react. But in modern life, most situations are not urgent. They require thought, not instant reaction. And yet, your brain still uses the same system. This is why feeling often comes before logic. You experience an emotion, and then your mind builds a story around it, not the other way around. For example, you feel uncomfortable in a situation. Then your mind explains why it's a bad idea. You feel confident about something. Then your mind finds reasons to support it. The emotion comes first. The logic follows. This leads to emotional shortcuts in decisions. Your brain uses feelings as signals. Instead of analyzing deeply, it asks, how do I feel about this? If it feels good, you move toward it. If it feels bad, you move away. This is fast. It saves effort. But it is not always accurate, because feelings are influenced by many things: your past experiences, your current mood, your environment. So your decision may not be based on reality, but on how you feel in that moment. For example, you may avoid an opportunity because it feels uncomfortable, not because it is wrong, but because it is unfamiliar. You may trust something because it feels right, not because it is correct, but because it matches your expectations. These emotional shortcuts simplify decisions, but they can also mislead you. This is where impulse reactions happen. When an emotion is strong, your brain pushes for immediate action. You feel the urge to respond quickly, to speak, to act, to react. And in that moment, it feels justified. It feels like the right thing to do. But that feeling is temporary. Once the emotion passes, your perspective changes. You may regret what you said. You may question what you did. You may wish you had paused. This is the pattern: emotion, reaction, reflection. And often, the reflection comes too late, because the action has already happened. Impulse reactions are not random. They are automatic responses. Your brain is trying to reduce the intensity of the emotion. If you feel anger, you release it. If you feel fear, you avoid. If you feel excitement, you act quickly. These reactions provide immediate relief, but they don't always lead to the best outcome. This is why understanding your emotions is important. Not to eliminate them, but to manage them. The key is creating space, a gap between the feeling and the action. Because in that gap, you have a choice. Without a gap, you react automatically. With a gap, you can respond intentionally. This is the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is fast. It is driven by emotion. It is automatic. It follows habit. Responding is different. It includes awareness. It involves a pause. It is chosen. When you pause, even for a moment, you interrupt the automatic process. You give your logical mind time to engage. You allow yourself to think. This does not remove the emotion, but it reduces its control. You can feel anger and choose not to react aggressively. You can feel fear and still take action. You can feel doubt and move forward anyway. This is real control. Not controlling what you feel, but controlling what you do. Another important part of this process is understanding how you justify emotional choices. After you react, your mind creates explanations. It tells a story. I had to say that. It was the right decision. That's just how I felt. These explanations make your actions feel reasonable, but they are often created after the fact. Your brain is trying to make your behavior seem logical, even if it was driven by emotion. This is important to recognize, because if you believe every justification, you never question your behavior. You repeat the same patterns. You react the same way. You stay in the same cycle. But when you become aware of this process, something changes. You begin to question your reactions. You ask, was this a choice or a reaction? Did I act intentionally or emotionally? These questions create insight. They help you understand your behavior, and that understanding allows change. Over time, this builds emotional awareness. You start recognizing your patterns. You notice when emotions rise. You notice when impulses appear. You notice when you are about to react. And in those moments, you pause, even briefly. That pause gives you control. It allows you to choose a better response, not based on how you feel in that moment, but based on what truly matters. This does not mean your emotions disappear. They will always be part of you, but they no longer control your actions. They become signals, not commands. They tell you something is happening, but they do not decide what you do. And that changes everything, because your life is not shaped by what you feel. It is shaped by what you do with those feelings. When you learn to pause, observe, and respond, you stop being controlled by emotion, and you start acting with intention. That is the shift, from reaction to awareness, from impulse to control, and that is how you take back your thinking. Chapter 6: The Dopamine Trap. Your brain is constantly chasing rewards, not big, life-changing rewards, but small, immediate ones. A notification, a message, a quick distraction, a moment of pleasure. These small rewards feel harmless, but they are shaping your behavior. At the center of this is dopamine. Dopamine is often called the feel-good chemical, but that description is incomplete. It is not just about pleasure. It is about motivation. It tells your brain, this feels good. Do it again. Every time you experience something rewarding, dopamine is released, and your brain remembers it. It builds a pattern. It creates a preference. And over time, it begins to guide your choices. This is where the trap begins, because your brain prefers instant gratification over long-term goals. Instant gratification is easy. It gives you a reward right now. No waiting, no effort, no uncertainty. You feel good immediately. But long-term goals are different. They require time. They require effort. They require consistency. And the reward is delayed. Your brain struggles with that delay. It wants results now, not later. So when you have a choice between something easy and something meaningful, your brain often chooses what feels good in the moment. This is not a conscious decision. It is automatic. For example, you plan to focus on something important, but then you check your phone. You open something distracting. You shift your attention. It feels small, But it is not random. Your brain is choosing a faster reward. This is how addiction to quick rewards develops. Not necessarily addiction in a severe sense, but a pattern, a habit of choosing immediate pleasure over meaningful effort. The more you repeat this, the stronger it becomes. Your brain starts expecting constant stimulation. It becomes less comfortable with boredom, less willing to focus, less patient with slow progress. This affects your ability to do meaningful work. Because meaningful work often feels difficult at the beginning. It requires attention, it requires effort, and it does not provide immediate reward. So your brain resists it. It looks for something easier, something faster, something more stimulating. And over time, this reduces your ability to stay focused. You become more distracted, more restless, more dependent on quick rewards. This is the dopamine trap. You are not choosing distraction. Your brain is being trained to prefer it. The more you give it easy rewards, the more it expects them, and the harder it becomes to engage in deeper, more valuable activities. This is why you may struggle to concentrate, why important tasks feel heavy, why small distractions feel irresistible. Not because you lack discipline, but because your brain has been conditioned. It has learned that quick rewards are easier, and it follows that pattern. Breaking this pattern requires awareness. You need to recognize when your brain is seeking instant gratification. When you feel the urge to switch tasks quickly, pause. Ask yourself, is this helping me or just giving me a quick reward? This question creates awareness. It helps you see the pattern. The next step is learning to delay gratification, not forever, but long enough to regain control. Instead of immediately following the impulse, you wait. You continue your task, even for a few minutes. This may feel uncomfortable at first because your brain expects a reward, but over time, this discomfort decreases. Your brain adapts. It becomes more patient, more focused. Another important step is reducing constant stimulation. If your environment is filled with quick rewards, your brain will continue to seek them. So you create space, you remove distractions, you allow moments of boredom. This may feel strange, but it is necessary because boredom is not a problem. It is a reset. It allows your brain to slow down, to regain focus, to reconnect with deeper tasks. You also need to reconnect reward with effort. Instead of only experiencing pleasure from easy activities, you begin to find satisfaction in progress, completing a task, making progress, staying focused. These become your new rewards. They may not feel as intense at first, but they are more meaningful, and over time, they become stronger. This is how you rebuild your focus. You train your brain to value long-term rewards, to tolerate effort, to stay engaged. You don't eliminate dopamine, you redirect it. You shift it from instant gratification to meaningful progress. This changes how you work, how you focus, how you grow, because now you are not controlled by every small impulse. You are choosing what matters. Your brain will always seek reward. That will never change. But now you decide what kind of reward you follow, the easy one or the meaningful one. And that choice determines your direction, because what you repeat becomes your habit, and your habits shape your life. Chapter 7. The Illusion of Control. You feel in control of your life. You make decisions, take actions, and believe those choices come from careful thinking. It feels like you are directing your behavior step by step. But much of that control is not as direct as it seems. Your brain is constantly working in the background, processing information, comparing past experiences, and predicting outcomes. This happens before you are even aware of it. By the time you decide, part of the process has already happened. This is why you think you're in control, because you experience the final moment, the conscious decision. But you don't see everything that led to it. Your subconscious mind plays a major role. It handles patterns, habits, and quick judgments. It reacts instantly. It uses past experiences. It avoids effort. So when you face a situation, your subconscious often makes a fast judgment. Safe or risky, familiar or unfamiliar, move forward, or hold back. This happens before your conscious thinking fully engages. Then your conscious mind steps in, but not always to make the decision, often to explain it. This is where the illusion becomes stronger. Your brain creates explanations after action. You do something. Then your mind builds a reason for it. For example, you avoid an opportunity. Your mind says, "I need more time. I'm not ready. It's not the right moment." These explanations feel logical, but they may not be the real cause. The real cause may be discomfort or fear. Your brain reacted, then created a story to make that reaction seem rational. This storytelling system is automatic. It helps your mind feel consistent. It makes your behavior seem intentional, even when it is influenced by unconscious processes. This is why you can feel confident about decisions that are not fully thought through, because the explanation feels complete. It makes sense to you. And that sense of clarity creates confidence. But confidence does not always equal control. You can feel certain and still be wrong, because your confidence is based on the story your brain created, not necessarily on full awareness of the process. This is the difference between confidence and actual control. Confidence is a feeling. It tells you, "I know what I'm doing." Control is a process. It requires awareness. It involves understanding why you are acting the way you are. Without awareness, confidence can be misleading. You may act quickly, trust your judgment, and feel sure, but still be influenced by hidden patterns. This is why people repeat the same mistakes. They trust their decisions. They feel confident, but they are not aware of the underlying patterns driving those decisions. To move beyond this illusion, you need to slow down your thinking, not in every situation, but in important ones. You need to notice when a decision feels automatic, when a reaction happens quickly, when a justification appears immediately. These are signs that your subconscious is leading. In those moments, pause. Ask yourself, why am I choosing this? Is this based on logic or habit? What might I be missing? These questions bring awareness into the process. They interrupt the automatic flow. They give your conscious mind time to engage. You begin to see your decisions more clearly, not just the outcome, but the process behind it. This creates real control, not perfect control, but meaningful control, because now you are not just reacting, you are observing, questioning, and choosing. Over time, this changes your behavior. You become less automatic, more deliberate, more aware. You still use your subconscious. It is necessary, but you don't rely on it blindly. You work with it. You allow quick judgments to appear, but you don't always follow them. You examine them. You adjust them, and you decide with intention. This reduces mistakes. It improves decision-making. It gives you clarity, because real control is not about controlling every thought. It is about understanding your patterns and choosing your actions with awareness. Your brain will always create explanations. It will always try to make sense of your behavior. That is its nature. But now, you know something important. Not every explanation is the full truth. And once you understand that, you stop assuming you are always in control. You start becoming more aware of how control actually works. And in that awareness, you gain something more powerful than confidence. You gain clarity. And with clarity, you make better choices. Chapter 8. Overthinking is a distraction. Overthinking feels productive. Your mind is active. You are analyzing, comparing, and evaluating. It feels like you are trying to make the best decision. But in many cases, overthinking is not helping you move forward. It is keeping you in the same place. Overthinking is not always about solving problems. It is often about avoiding action. Instead of taking a step, you stay in your head. You think about possibilities. You imagine outcomes. You consider every option. And while this feels useful, it often delays the moment where something real happens. This is thinking as avoidance, because action involves risk. If you act, you might fail. If you decide, you might be wrong. If you move forward, you face uncertainty. But if you keep thinking, you stay safe. You don't expose yourself to consequences. You delay the moment where you have to face reality. This is why overthinking feels comfortable. It gives you the illusion of progress, without actual progress. Your mind is busy, but your life is not moving. The more you think, the more possibilities appear. Each option has advantages and disadvantages. Each path has uncertainty. And instead of becoming clearer, your thinking becomes more complex. This leads to paralysis by analysis. You are not stuck because you lack options. You are stuck because you have too many, and you are trying to find the perfect one. You want certainty. You want a decision with no risk, but that does not exist. Every decision involves uncertainty, and when you try to eliminate it completely, you create a loop. You think, you doubt, you think more, you doubt again. This is a mental loop. You revisit the same thoughts, you go over the same ideas, you replay the same scenarios, but you don't reach a conclusion because your thinking is not leading to action. It is circling. These loops can feel intense. You may spend hours analyzing something simple. You may feel mentally tired without having done anything. This is because overthinking drains energy. It uses mental resources, but does not produce results. Over time, this affects your confidence. You begin to doubt your ability to decide. You think, what if I choose wrong? What if there's a better option? What if I regret this? These questions keep you stuck because they focus on what could go wrong, not on what you can do. Another reason overthinking is powerful is because thinking feels easier than acting. Thinking happens in your mind. It does not require effort in the real world. It does not expose you to failure. It does not create immediate consequences. But action is different. It requires effort. It involves uncertainty. It produces real outcomes. And your brain resists that. It prefers the safety of thinking, because thinking gives you the feeling of control, without the risk. But this control is an illusion, because while you are thinking, nothing is changing. Your situation remains the same. Your ideas remain untested. Your progress remains limited. This is the hidden cost of overthinking. You stay in potential, instead of moving into reality. Breaking this pattern requires a shift, not in how you think, but in how you act. You need to change your relationship with thinking. Instead of using it as a place to stay, use it as a tool to move. Think to understand, then act to learn. Because clarity does not come from endless thinking. It comes from experience. When you act, you get feedback. You see what works. You see what doesn't. You adjust. This reduces uncertainty, because now your thinking is based on real outcomes, not imagined ones. To apply this, you need to set limits on thinking. Give yourself a short time to consider your options. Then decide. This prevents endless loops. It trains your mind to move forward. You also need to accept imperfection. No decision will be perfect. There will always be unknowns. Waiting for certainty is a way of avoiding action. Instead, choose a direction and improve as you go. You can correct mistakes. You can learn from results. You can adapt, but you cannot improve a decision you never make. Another important step is recognizing when thinking becomes repetitive. If you are thinking the same thoughts again and again, you are not gaining new insight. You are looping. That is your signal, not to think more, but to act. Even a small action is enough, because action breaks the loop. It shifts you from imagination to reality. Over time, this changes your behavior. You stop relying on thinking for comfort. You start using action for progress. You become more decisive, more confident, more effective, not because you always know the answer, but because you are willing to move without it. This is the difference. Overthinking keeps you stuck in your head. Action moves you into the real world. And the real world is where clarity exists, because you don't find answers by thinking about them forever. You find them by doing something. So the next time you feel trapped in your thoughts, pause. Ask yourself, am I trying to understand or trying to avoid? And if the answer is avoidance, take a step, any step. Because clarity does not come before action, it comes after it. And the moment you move, you break free from the distraction of overthinking. Chapter 9. Your environment is programming. You believe your thoughts come from you, that your ideas, opinions, and decisions are independent, but your environment is constantly shaping how you think, often without your awareness. Every day you are surrounded by influences, people, conversations, content, social media, your physical space. All of these send signals to your brain, and your brain absorbs them, not always consciously, but continuously. This is how your environment programs you. The influence of people and surroundings is powerful. The people you spend time with affect how you think, speak, and act. If you are around people who take action, you feel more motivated. If you are around people who complain, you start focusing on problems. If you are around negativity, your mindset shifts in that direction. You begin to adopt patterns, not because you choose to, but because your brain adapts. It mirrors behavior. It learns from repetition. It aligns with what feels normal. And over time, what you are exposed to becomes your standard. This is why environment matters, because what feels normal shapes what feels possible. If your environment is limited, your thinking becomes limited. If your environment is growth-focused, your thinking expands. Another major influence is social media. You are constantly exposed to information, images, opinions, success stories, comparisons. And even if you don't realize it, this affects you. You begin to compare yourself, your progress, your lifestyle, your achievements. You measure your life against what you see, and often what you see is not reality. It is a filtered version, highlights, not struggles, results, not process. But your brain does not always recognize that difference. It simply compares. And comparison creates pressure. You may feel behind. You may feel not enough. You may feel like you are missing something. These feelings influence your thinking. They shape your decisions. They affect your confidence. This is how external inputs shape your mind. Everything you consume becomes part of your thinking. What you watch, what you read, what you listen to. Your brain takes it in. It forms beliefs. It creates expectations. If you constantly consume negative information, your mindset becomes negative. If you surround yourself with distraction, your focus decreases. If you expose yourself to growth, your thinking improves. This is not random. It is conditioning. Your brain is always learning, always adapting, always adjusting to what it experiences. And if you are not aware of this, your environment decides your direction. This is why designing a better environment is important. You cannot control every influence, but you can control many. You can choose what you are exposed to. You can choose who you spend time with. You can choose what you consume daily. Start with your inputs. Pay attention to what you watch, read, and listen to. Ask yourself, is this helping me grow or distracting me? Reduce what adds no value. Increase what improves your thinking. Next, consider your surroundings. Your physical space affects your focus. If your environment is cluttered, your mind feels cluttered. If your space is organized, your thinking becomes clearer. Small changes make a difference. A clean space, fewer distractions, a place designed for focus. These support better habits. Your social environment matters as well. You don't need to change everyone around you, but you need awareness. Notice how certain people influence you. Do they support growth or reinforce limitation? Spend more time with those who push you forward. Limit exposure to what pulls you back, because influence is constant. Even small interactions shape your thinking. Another key step is intentional exposure. Instead of passively consuming information, choose it. Learn something useful. Listen to ideas that challenge you. Expose yourself to perspectives that expand your thinking. This trains your brain differently. It moves you from reaction to intention. Over time, this changes your mindset. You become less influenced by random inputs, more guided by purposeful ones. Your thinking becomes clearer. Your decisions become stronger, because you are no longer shaped only by your environment. You are shaping it. Your environment will always have an effect on you. That will not change. But now, you understand how it works, and that gives you control. Because instead of asking, "Why do I think this way?" you can ask, "What is influencing my thinking?" And when you change the influence, you change the outcome, because your mind is not just what you think. It is what you are exposed to. And when you design your environment intentionally, you begin to design your life. Chapter 10. Breaking the brain's tricks. Your brain will always use shortcuts. It will always try to simplify, predict, and react quickly. That is how it is designed. You cannot stop this process completely, but you can stop it from controlling your life. Breaking the brain's tricks does not mean fighting your mind. It means understanding it and working with it. And it begins with one simple step: awareness. Awareness is the moment you notice what is happening inside your mind, not after the decision, but during it. You notice a thought forming. You notice a reaction beginning. You notice an impulse pushing you to act. Instead of automatically following it, you pause. I'm thinking this. I'm feeling this. This small shift changes everything, because now you are not inside the process. You are observing it, and that creates distance. Distance gives you control. Without awareness, your brain runs automatically. Thought, reaction, action. With awareness, there is a gap, and in that gap, you have a choice. The next step is questioning automatic thoughts. Your brain produces thoughts constantly. Some are useful, some are inaccurate, some are simply habits. But most people treat every thought as truth. They believe it without questioning, and that is where the brain's tricks become powerful. The next time a thought appears, ask, "Is this true or just familiar? Is this based on evidence or assumption?" This interrupts the automatic process. It forces your brain to slow down. You begin to see your thoughts as possibilities, not facts. For example, a thought says, "This will fail." Instead of believing it, you question it. What evidence do I have? Is this certain or just fear? This reduces the power of the thought. It stops it from controlling your decision. Another important step is slowing down decisions. Your brain prefers speed. It wants quick answers, quick reactions, quick conclusions. But speed often leads to mistakes, because fast thinking relies on shortcuts. If a decision matters, slow it down. Take a moment. Consider your options. Look at the situation from different angles. Ask, what am I missing? What would I think if I had more time? This brings in deeper thinking. It reduces bias. It improves accuracy. You don't need to slow down everything. But for important decisions, slowing down creates clarity. It allows your conscious mind to lead, instead of your automatic patterns. The final step is acting with intention. Awareness and thinking are important, but they are not enough. You need action, but not automatic action. Intentional action. Instead of reacting based on habit, you choose your response. You ask, what action aligns with my goal? What matters most in this moment? Then you act based on that answer, not based on fear, not based on impulse, but based on direction. This may feel difficult at first, because your brain is used to reacting quickly. It will try to pull you back into old patterns. But each time you act with intention, you weaken those patterns. You build new ones. Over time, this becomes easier. What once required effort becomes natural. You start to notice your thoughts automatically. You question them without effort. You make decisions more clearly. This is how change happens, not through one big moment, but through repeated small shifts. Each moment of awareness, each question you ask, each intentional action you take, they add up. They reshape your thinking, they improve your decisions, and they give you control. Not perfect control, but real control. because you are no longer following every thought. You are guiding your response. Your brain will always try to trick you. It will simplify, assume, and react. That will not change. But now you see it. And once you see it, you are no longer controlled by it. You are working with it. You are choosing your direction. And that is the difference. Because your life is not shaped by your thoughts alone. It is shaped by what you choose to do with them. And when you become aware, question, slow down, and act with intention, you take back control from your mind, step by step. Conclusion. Your brain is powerful, but it is not always reliable. It helps you think, decide, and act. But as you've seen, it also uses shortcuts, biases, and automatic patterns that can mislead you. It simplifies reality, fills in gaps, and reacts quickly, sometimes without accuracy. And if you are not aware of this, it quietly shapes your life. Awareness is what changes everything. The moment you begin to notice your thoughts instead of blindly following them, you reduce the influence of these mental tricks. You create space between what your brain produces and how you respond. And in that space, you gain control. You realize something important is you are not controlled by every thought. Thoughts will appear, some helpful, some misleading, but they do not define your actions unless you allow them to. You have the ability to pause, question, and choose. This is where real change begins. Not through big dramatic shifts, but through small, consistent actions. Noticing a thought, questioning an assumption, slowing down a decision, choosing a better response. These small changes may seem simple, but they are powerful. Over time, they reshape how you think, how you decide, and how you act. Because in the end, there are only two paths. Either you learn to understand and guide your mind, or you allow it to guide you without awareness, master your mind, or be controlled by it. The choice is always yours. Call to action Desker. Which brain trick affects you the most? Take a moment and think about it. If something stood out while listening, share it in the comments. Your insight could help someone else recognize what's been holding them back. And if you know someone who struggles with overthinking or feels stuck in their own thoughts, send this audiobook to them. Sometimes one idea can completely change the way someone sees their mind. If you want more powerful mindset audiobooks like this, make sure to subscribe to MindForge Audiobooks and stay connected for future content. Because understanding your mind is the first step to taking control of your life. Your brain can mislead you, but awareness puts you back in control.